All right. Kateline, I tried your thing today. I did a nap. I'm not crazy about it. I feel crabby or something. Do you wake up refreshed?
No.
Oh. You just prefer to being awake.
But maybe your naps aren't long enough.
Maybe. I mean, I should have spent it testing the mic sitch, but I was like, no, Kurt, go catch some quick Z's, see what happens.
I'm not a big fan of the 20-minute napper. You know how people say, like, all you need is 20 minutes and then you're refreshed.
That's what my dad does.
No. Nope. I gotta go down hard. Why would I wake myself up if I'm asleep?
Yeah, I'm with you there. There is a list item tonight that I'm like, if Kateline didn't catch this. And what helps me remember it is my list item happened right before it, but I can't remember mine.
Oh.
So anyway, maybe we should get into this bad boy.
Yeah.
I'm Lester Holt.
Howdy, Holdheads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Kateline.
and we are here to discuss a brand new Halloween-themed Dateline. And it was pretty Halloween-y because it took place on Halloween night, kind of, 2 nights before.
The darkest secret of them all.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Here is the IMDb description. A mother vanishes after a Halloween party. Years later, new clues turn the town upside down. That's about as basic as it gets.
That's pretty weak.
What was this a weak episode? Kateline, hit me with your overall thoughts.
I didn't hate this one, but I knew who it was the second it started just because of the guy's eyes.
Come on! Really? Did you call it from the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Look at his eyes.
He takes a mean photograph. He's always looks like he got caught doing something, which, hey, supports your theory here.
Yeah, although,
I get it.
I feel bad because his daughter really thinks he's innocent, and who am I to decide?
Well, I'm pretty comfortable deciding, but maybe we'll save that for the end. There's someone else that I called at 8 minutes where I was like, oh, I feel it. It's this guy. And I was like, I gotta tell Kateline I called it. And I was dead wrong.
The kid next door is a meatball.
But anyway, this story begins in Dyserburg, Tennessee, 2011. There is a raging Halloween party going on at the farms. This is like a 200 plus people. It's a who's who of Dyserburg. Anybody who's anybody is there partying. Mm-hmm. And that includes Karen Swift, who was there in a Mardi Gras mask. And I love this because it was costume, right? And most everybody showed up. But what did they say about Karen Swift's costume?
Minimal effort?
Yeah. The guy's describing it. The town judge / lawyer / divorce lawyer / party thrower, because he was the one hosting this party. He was like, well, she didn't win costume of the night. I was like, damn, dude.
Sick burn, guy.
She had on kind of like a Mardi Gras mask. She didn't win the best costume of the night.
But she was feeling like the third wheel. She's hanging out with her 2 friends, who, the woman's name is Kathy Bono, correct?
Is it Bono? I don't know. I felt like Keith was saying it weird.
The one thing we do know is the Bonos are swingers. But that's just a taste for later, because I got a lot of thoughts on it.
Allegedly.
Exactly. And also, who the cares if they are? Anyway, kick it down the road.
Strange bedfellows.
Karen Swift calls her buddy, Jennifer in Lexington. She's like, I feel out of place here. I'm a third wheel. Jenny's like, go to the bar, get you a drink.
And I told her to just go sit at the bar, and I said, just get you a drink. And
I like Jenny. Did you like Jenny?
I did.
Yeah, me too. So she goes to the bar, gets a drink. They leave around midnight. They hit up McDonald's for some fries. Midnight fries are right up my alley. How about you, Kateline?
I don't eat that late, Kurt.
What? Are you for real?
Yeah.
What?
That's too late. My acid reflux will just be screaming at me all night.
I'm jealous of your self-control. I mean, I do my best eating at night.
Well, like when I text you that I'm ringing the bell.
Yep.
The latest I'll do it is like 9:30, 10.
Wow. That's impressive. I mean, I literally bring a few Starbursts with me to bed, so I'm eating up until I snooze. I'm all about the midnight fries, and I do it. And actually, recently, before we moved, me and the missus would go to McDonald's. She'd get an ice cream cone. I'd get some fries and nugs. But anyway, back to Tennessee, 2011. They hit the drive-thru at McDonald's. Then they go back to the Bono's house. They're all going to crash that night. But Karen gets a call from her 9-year-old daughter. She is scared and also feels like a third wheel. That was kind of crazy.
That was a weird coincidence for them, yeah. Her daughter was at a sleepover with a bunch of girls and was not feeling the vibe and wanted to come home.
That feels crappy, doesn't it?
it does.
And her mom was like, you know what, me too, let's go home. And picked her up and they went home.
They get home around 2 a.m. The dad, David Swift, stayed up just to make sure they got home okay. So then Karen goes to bed with the daughter. Now, we got to remember the daughter's name because she's interviewed by Keith and in this episode a lot.
Ashley.
Ashley! Got it. So Ashley's 9 and she goes to bed with her mom. And that's the last we hear anybody till 10 a.m. David and the kids are up. But where is mom? Mother, Karen Swift, is missing. Now, where's your head at right now, Kateline?
Well, Ashley, she was saying that when she woke up, she was in a different room from where she went to sleep. So she knew that she had been moved at some point and thought, oh, I guess, like, mom moved me and then left and went off to run her errands or whatever she had to do. Nobody was really worried because they didn't even know she was really missing.
So they call up her friends, the Bonos, and say, like, Karen come back last night. Bonos say, we don't know where she is either. And so now everybody's getting worried. And a block or two down the street, David Swift finds her car. The flat tire and also the seat is pushed back as if a tall guy drove it.
Yeah, like David when he killed her.
Yeah. So they call the police. I mean, they file missing persons, right? This is when it all gets started?
Yeah, again, very confusing how some jurisdictions are like, well, it hasn't been long enough. And then others are like, oh, they've been missing an hour? Okay, let's file that missing persons.
And you know what? I don't know if Lexington is, like, close to Dyserburg. I wish there was a way I could tell, but there isn't. They called Jenny out there, and they say, we seem to have misplaced Karen. Which is weird.
We seem to have misplaced her. And I thought you misplaced her.
Not 5 minutes later, the Lexington police show up going, we heard you could possibly be hiding Karen. What's the story in here, Lexington Jen? That was weird, huh?
Why would the police be asking about a woman who had been missing at this point for like 2 hours? A grown woman.
Yeah.
Could absolutely be at her friend's house, and
Yeah.
that's totally fine. It was very odd. I mean, I'm glad they were looking, but that's so strange.
Yeah. Especially in Karen's spot, because her and David got a rough and rocky marriage. And we know that weeks before this, she had filed for divorce. So she was looking to hit the bricks. And so, like, it could be that Karen wanted to get out of there. So that would make a whole lot of sense, but she's not showing up. And everybody's worried, including Karen's son, Preston, who I have 5 to 10 questions about. And none of them were answered by Keith or Dateline. I don't know about you, Kate. What do you think? You got some questions about this son?
I had no questions about him. They barely even mentioned him.
Okay, so they talk about the son Preston because he made a heartfelt plea direct to camera like the day after she goes missing.
And Karen's son, Preston, went before TV cameras.
We want to know she's okay, and I love you, Mom.
This is when I put my smart guy cap on and said, kill her, kill her. You didn't suspect him right then?
No.
Kate says, nah, not me, not me.
Do you still suspect him?
No, well, I don't suspect the son, but it was one of those things where that was the only time we ever talked about him. I couldn't recognize that person in any of the family photos. We would see pictures of the son when he was a kid. He didn't look like the guy making the plea, and he doesn't look like the guy in court later with the beard. Is that the same son?
Did they have older kids or just the two?
No, it was, as far as I know, it was the 2 girls, the son Preston, and then the other son that they don't talk about because David had it out of, he cheated on Karen, and then they found out later that he friggin' had a kid with this lady.
Right.
But I don't know where or when but I thought for sure, I was like, the whole time I'm watching this going, boy, it sure does look like the husband, but we're not talking about that son again. Like, it felt like a setup where they planted a seed, but wrong.
That's a good point. What would the motive have been?
Well, I guess early on I was thinking they're spending a lot of time talking about Karen Swift and how she's been acting recently.
Saw her get up out of the hot tub and she kind of stumbled her way into the house.
Still no clothes on.
No.
Oh, boy.
In the town, and everybody's got a big old opinion of it because she's out there getting drunk and having fun, and wouldn't you know it, she's friends with people that might be swingers. Okay? And this has everybody worried.
Right. And they tried to make it seem like maybe she was also swinging, but that's not how swinging works. Your partner needs to be swinging with
point.
you. Like she said, she's just a third wheel, and that's not fun.
That feels crappy.
There's a lot made out of this swinging business. So much so that it was a club called the Pink
Poodle Club.
Pink Poodle Club? I keep wanting to say the song. Pink Poodle Club, where it was rumored that there's a lot of people swinging around town, and Karen was in on it.
What can you tell me about the
What is it, the Pink Poodle Club?
What happened was years ago, there was a Pink Poodle Club allegedly in Dyserburg. Pink Poodle Club really is like just a synonym for swingers now.
And I would like to say that I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you agree that if Karen was having sex with her friends, it's nobody else's goddamn business. She filed for divorce, and you don't get to have a say in it. What do you think, Kate? You with me there?
I feel like Dateline was only trying to talk about what a hoe she was to establish motive of why David might want to kill her. But really, there's no other reason to talk about her hoeing, because that doesn't make someone any more or less a target. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really... Why did they have to even go into that other than to be like, see, it made David mad?
It was good for a cliffhanger or two.
It also doesn't make her a bad person, and I think they were, especially in court, trying to speak to her character. Like, she went and got herself murdered because she was being a hoe. But it's like, nah, dude, not really.
Yeah, and David, the husband's not helping matters, because when he goes down to the police station to talk to the cops, to tell him about his missing wife, all he can really tell is stories about her falling asleep in her own vomit, or like finding her in a hot tub naked with her friends. Like just a bunch of judgy Judgerson business going on, right?
Yeah, and don't let's not leave out the part where he comes in on crutches completely faking an injury. 100% faking it, and you can tell from the video.
You think so?
And also, his alibi was that he'd had knee surgery earlier in the year, and he kind of hurt it again. And I'm like, yeah, murdering your wife and moving her body is what hurt it again.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
That's true. Now, as soon as he limped his sorry ass in there, I'm thinking, this is now our second suspect to come in on crutches. We've seen this move before, okay? Mm-hmm. And last time was the guy guilty on crutches.
Yes.
Yeah, he sure was.
He's getting interviewed by Detective Gray, and they're grateful because he comes in there on crutches because he got shot.
Mm-hmm. The way he was talking to those cops in that interrogation made me so angry. If he wasn't talking about how terrible his wife was...
She was so drunk once that she had passed out on the porch in her own vomit.
He was trying to say how badly he wanted to help them. That on top of the fake crutches, you're guilty.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they say, all right, well, if you want to help out, give us permission to search your place. And David says, sure, you do what you gotta do, dudes.
Yeah, because he didn't murder her in the house.
Well, what do they find when they get to the house? Some suspicious ass shit, if you ask me, right?
In the house?
They show up, well, I guess at the house because they're outside, but there's a bunch of empty bleach bottles.
There are. A bunch. But it's outside near, like, the fence.
Yeah, I mean, because they have a huge yard, and Keith's talking about how it blends in with the neighbors, and there's acres involved.
Where one property tended to meld into the next one.
But we see a picture of these jugs. Spoiler. Of these jugs, these empty bleach bottles. I never heard one explanation for what those were for. This might be on Dateline for not telling us, but what the hell was the reason for those jugs?
Covering up his wife's murder. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then not too far from there, they found her cell phone and another phone with it. Turned out that they were both hers. One was her mom phone and one was her hoe phone. But
yep, paid for by the Bonos, the supposed swingers.
It was really paid for by her friends. But you know what? It's just because she had a whole big social life and was trying to do stuff that her husband wouldn't see.
Because her husband is a nosy, overbearing jerk-off, and she kind of had to have it because he was monitoring everything. Mm-hmm. Like, they talk a little bit about the relationship, about how David cheats and has a kid, they get back together, and then Karen cheats. And then we're talking to Karen's friends, and they're like, she would say around me, I don't love you anymore, David.
And he would go, yes, you do, Karen. You still love me. It was apparently real weird and tense.
Okay. Now, and I mean, no one was more shook than Keith Morrison. Do you remember what he said to the story? He goes, something big happened there. Oh my. It was a real KM. Do you remember this?
I do, actually. I do remember the something big.
Something big happened there. My.
Something big happened.
Yeah. Oh, so there's a few friends. I'm not sure their names. One of them, though, in the blue. Do you remember the lady in the blue? Blonde hair, blue.
Yes, because she looks like Grace Gummer.
Oh my God, Kate. Kate. That's fucking hysterical. Guess what I was calling her over here? Midwest Mamie Gummer. To me, she looked like Mamie.
Oh, Mamie Gummer.
She looked like Mamie.
I say more like Grace.
But that's hilarious. I thought you were gonna. I thought the age police were gonna get in here because she's a little older than a Mamie Gummer. We both said Gummer though. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, she's got that Gummer nose and mouth. She's
Yeah.
cute. I really like that look, by the way.
Same. And every time I remember the name Mamie Gummer for a great ref to drop, like in instances like this, I always gotta double check it on the Goog because it doesn't feel like a name to me. Mamie, but it is Mamie. But why waste our time on the name Mamie Gummer when we've got a guy involved in this story named Mr. Hog Shooter? Not a nickname, folks.
His real last name.
So apparently the Swift's neighbor is this guy Hog Shooter.
John Hogshooter, the Swifts' neighbor.
Who was really mad at all the neighborhood dogs, so much so that he placed poison in his own yard. I guess this is the only reason why he's not on death row. In my books, I suppose.
Well,
right?
this is confusing to me because he intentionally murdered dogs by poisoning them.
Yep.
But he didn't get arrested for that. But he's fully admitting to it. And he's just allowed to walk around.
Look, I'm with you. I wanted to get my own hands on Hog Shooter. But I think because it was poison on his own property is why he can run his mouth about pray for me and my family. We just want this resolved.
My family is standing behind me. We're just going to trust in God that this is going to be over with.
That does not justify this move whatsoever. I hate this prick. But I feel like that's why he doesn't get in trouble for it, right?
I guess it's some stand your ground law. But, like, what are the dogs doing?
Yeah.
What are they doing? Your property is so big. What do you care?
Yeah, that's true. So we find out about Hog Shooter from David because he's going, well, have you talked to these people? Have you talked to these people? Because he just wants to find his wife. Wait, the Gummer, Grace Gummer, I forgot about Grace. Is she the older or younger? Younger. Okay. I gotta, wait.
But not the youngest.
Who's the youngest?
The youngest doesn't go by Gummer. She's on the Gilded Age and she uses a different last name.
Okay. Louisa?
Jacobson.
Okay. I kind of see it. And there's Mamie. Okay.
You still think Mamie looks more like her than Grace?
I think, but they're within 3 years of each other. Grace is, I'm not going to say normal. I love both their looks. Mamie is a little bit more unique than Grace. Looks like Kateline's getting on her own Goog. Off to the Kateline Goog.
Coming to the Goog. Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. Grace looks so much like her, though.
But
yeah, you might be right. It might be more Mamie.
Right on. But, but they're both babes. I love both their looks.
Oh, yeah, a whole family of babes.
Angie Gallagher became friends with Karen when the Swifts lived in Arkansas.
Wait, who does she round up? I mean, saying round up's a good choice, Kurt. She calls up her horse friends.
Hey, what if we rounded up all of our horse buddies and went and did a horse search over in Dyserburg?
Yeah, they get on their horses to go look for Karen. I don't know how effective that would be because you really need to get down in that brush and you're up on that horse. And she even said, like, we couldn't really see a ton because of the thick, what was
kudzu.
Kudzu. Man,
that's a new word I learned tonight. Kudzu.
Love talking about their kudzu. Sounds like a dirty word.
It does. And they'd say things like waist high kudzu. Like that feels like a code word for something that would be happening at these evil swinger parties. Did you say pussy?
Yeah, just waist high in kudzu.
It does sound like that.
We probably had waist high kudzu vines.
I've never heard of kudzu. They showed us pictures. It's beautiful. It's pretty cool looking.
It's so pretty. I thought the same thing. I was like, I love that it's all covering that whole valley. And they're like, it's real thick. We hate it.
Yeah. So the horse brigade, they pack it up. But we don't know where Karen is. And 2 months pass because we're into December when the kudzu finally gets out of there. And they find Karen Swift's body.
Under a steel cross in a patch of withering kudzu.
Do you think that they rode around it with the horses? They just didn't see it.
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, that area is just so... It didn't sound to me like they had gone right by it and didn't notice.
Now, let's talk about the detectives tonight. I had a lot of fun with these friggin' detectives. But I gotta say, this episode made me side with people I do not normally side with sometimes. Where I was like, right?
Because I'm on the side of the prosecution and not the side of the victim's family.
Yeah. And this weird old rich guy that comes into the picture, I was like, I want to hate this guy.
Yeah. He's innocent. He has nothing to do. It's a red herring. He's got nothing to do with it.
All the distraction of this episode is red herring, which Keith likes to call because of a disruptor.
Disruptor with a capital D.
But before we talk about the disruptor, okay, because that's when things get crazy, I gotta go back to these cops. Tell me, why were they wearing their badges in their outside coat pockets, Kate? They both had on their fucking heavy-ass gold star badges hanging out of their jackets. Huh?
They're really proud of it.
Keith was probably like, we're going to identify you before we start talking. And they're like, no. We want people to know in every shot. So much so that we're also going to have a little pin. So during close-ups, you could still see that I'm a detective. Because even one of the guys...
They're really proud of their jobs and their police force, and they just want everyone to know it.
Yeah, and they were, along with Lexington Jenny, they weren't they had no opinion on Karen Swift's personal life because it didn't matter to them, and they were aware of that. They're like, look, we're here for a murder, so you can keep asking us about swingers, but we don't care.
We don't give a shit.
We don't.
Which I love to hear.
Same.
Karen was murdered, and it wasn't because of the hot tub.
Because the one person that did care about it was their friggin' boots on the ground there. What was her name?
The lady who had a lot of plastic surgery.
Yes.
Classic TV reporter look.
Absolutely. She was there to just throw, oil on the fire and not offer anything new. Like, she was the one to support the bullshit stuff.
She loved the rumor mill.
She did.
She's married, and she's hanging out with swingers, so that was shocking.
That this small town was just abuzz with all this talk of these hedonistic swingers, and Karen just was in the wrong crowd and blah blah blah, and it's like, man, there's got to be other news stories for you to cover than some people swinging. Again, allegedly. There's no evidence of that.
Yeah, they talk to people that say, do you think swinging is really talked about in Dyserburg? They made it sound like Dyserburg is like a poppin' place for swingers and stuff, right? They really talked it up as being this crazy haven of sexual deviancy.
Are there even enough people in the town to have
good cue
things like that?
The Pink Poodles.
So while they're searching the property, what do they find in the back of David's car? Not just in the trunk, mind you, but in the spare tire well underneath the spare tire. What's in there?
That would be his divorce papers.
Now, he told them about the divorce in the interrogation.
She don't want to be a wife. That's her decision.
So why is he hiding these papers, Kate? What's that?
Because he killed his wife. He didn't want to get divorced.
Yeah.
He also didn't like her behavior.
Yeah.
And only he is allowed to sleep with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Hey, he messed up once. Hearing him in that interrogation. Oof. So even though we've got this husband that looks guilty as sin, this son who Kurt thinks could be guilty if we see him again.
No.
This baby goes cold a little bit. Like its time is starting to pass. But then that disruptor comes to town.
With a capital D.
A disruptor named Heather Cohen. Kateline, tell us about Heather Cohen.
Heather Cohen is a private investigator.
Uh-huh.
And she becomes obsessed with this case. And she doesn't agree with the direction the investigation is going. She doesn't think David has anything to do with it. She starts hitting the ground, getting information from everybody around, and she hears that there may have been someone else lurking near where Karen's body was found.
And she also gets a recording that we hear, right? She's the one that made this recording happen, right? Of someone saying where to find the body?
Well, because there was supposedly a tip that came in telling cops where to find the body.
Well, we heard the tip. It happened. We don't...
No, but is it a real tip or is it... That's not what I mean. Is it the killer saying it?
Yeah, telling the left of Karen Swift, 5.3 miles west, buried in shallow grave.
Yeah, I don't know. It would have been nice if someone had told us if that's where the body was found. They didn't even tell us that, right? I was waiting for Keith to go, and the body was found 5.3 miles away. What do you think? I'm giving a side eye to Dateline tonight, Kateline. How you feel about
That's
that?
interesting. I didn't pick up on that they never actually told us.
And what's interesting, okay, so Heather comes in and she's got a podcast, of course she does, and Dateline gives it a big old plug.
She shares a lot about her cases online and on a podcast she hosts called The Justice Warriors.
And it's called We Are the Justice Warriors. They play a funny clip, right? Remember that clip?
Mm-hmm.
We will stand for what is right because we are the Justice Warriors.
She's there with her podcast, and she's got her crew, and they're out there searching and talking to people. They come up with this recording, and then Heather forms a theory based on hearsay and sources she can't name, that Karen was having an affair with a guy named Bentley. And Bentley was married to Dina. And Dina's dad was like the town tough guy. Like the town, like he was like...
He's the town millionaire.
Yeah, town millionaire. There you go. And she says that town millionaire, who we talked to in his... I mean, he's in his 90s or something. He's pretty up there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not... Should he have been interviewed?
His eyes were closed the whole time.
They were. Truly.
Hell, pardon my French, but no, I've never...
He's never owned a metal detector.
Never, I don't even know how to operate one.
And also, his son was with him, I think, to help out and stuff. And his son, when he talked, his eyes would shut. His son was a dope to me. Remember the son?
That's funny. I didn't pick up on the eyes.
He had like a Chris Elliott vibe a little bit. The nose up. I mean, she says that this town millionaire had Karen killed because she was like messing up their family by sleeping with Bentley. Now, Dina and the family and everybody denies it. Do you think that Karen Swift had an affair with Bentley?
No.
Me neither. And the only reason... Oh, the name of this family is the Sells.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Sells. Daryl Sells. And now here's a guy that I like... I'm primed to be angry at because he starts with, hey, I dropped out in 9th grade and I made myself a made man. I got my money because I'm a hard worker. No, dude.
Oh, yeah.
No,
He's
dude.
a real bootstraps guy, born on third base, thinks he hit a home run. But he didn't kill her.
Absolutely not. And, so wait, is there a fast food place called Burgerland? He got into fast food in the 70s, and I say right time, right place. Okay? Like,
oh, yeah.
Right time, right place. I'm not giving you credit for this, dude.
So let me tell you, I'm a 9th grade dropout from high school.
So I'm ready to go arms crossed at him, but I'm kind of on his side throughout this episode because he just wants Heather to shut up and stop talking about his family.
It's hurt their family a
Right?
lot. None of it's true. And then Heather hears that there's an eyewitness who saw Daryl where the body was found, right before it was found, using a metal detector. Which, first of all...
Yep, let's talk about this.
Why would you use a metal detector after you just buried a body? And he clearly doesn't know how to use a metal detector.
What's the
The
purpose?
guy that they saw was just some random old guy who was out there using his metal detector, had nothing to do with the body.
Yeah, supposedly there were 3 people that saw a guy with a metal detector, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, which one of those people do we see testify to this story at the trial later? This is where I talk about the son again in my confusion. The son is the one up there saying that, and he said he was looking for his watch, and if I wasn't mistaken, I looked down, and he was wearing a watch.
That's Karen's son?
That's the f***ing son.
One of them was David Swift's son, Dustin.
I noticed somebody randomly standing in the ditch with a metal detector. He said he had lost his watch, and if I'm not mistaken, when I looked down, he's got a watch on his wrist, and I thought it was very odd.
That's Karen's son, Ashley, look, my heart goes out to her, okay? She's crying on the stand, and she's very upset, but it's a classic case of, you grew up with the murderer. Like, we can't trust anything you're saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because all of her reasoning is BS, and Keith kind of calls her on it because a big sticking point is she's like, my mom is the one that put me in my bed, not my dad. And she says,
even though she doesn't remember being put in her bed at all.
And the way that she says to Keith, after all these years, I would know the touch of my mom. And Keith's like, well, that was the last time you touched your mom. We're not talking about right now.
After all this time of not feeling her, touching her, smelling her, I would know it was her.
That was the last time you felt her, too.
It was.
That was weird as hell, wasn't it?
Right. It was weird. I get, though, what she was saying, that she knows the difference, even when she's kind of in twilight sleep, of who's moving her. But initially, she said she woke up and didn't remember moving at all.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a older version of her on the stand has a different perspective than 9-year-old her. And 9-year-old her is the one who actually experienced it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of shook by this brother thing. I didn't realize that was Karen's son who said he saw Daryl's cells with the metal detector. And then said, I'm looking for my watch, but you're wearing a watch. Someone can also have more than one watch and be looking for their watch. And since that one is missing, they're wearing their other one because they need to tell the time.
Okay, exactly. That's if you're a person who wears a watch and goes out with a metal detector, if you lost a watch, you're definitely wearing a watch to go look for it. Right.
Yeah.
Like that makes perfect sense to me. And but also Ashley, the daughter, throws this son under the bus. What does she say about him? But because Keith's like, well, even your own brother is saying that he saw, this metal detector business. And she's like, yeah, he's weirdly obsessed with that.
That's my brother's story to tell, but I do think that he is weirdly obsessed and involved.
Ouch. Weirdly obsessed with his mom's death? Ouch, Ashley. Isn't that weird? Future Kurt here. I'm not to the bottom of the mystery about the son or sons. And I'd say that because the beardo on the stand talking about the watch, his name was Dustin. The guy who made the plea to the camera was Preston. Dustin's too old to be the kid that David had with his mistress, I think. Anyway, so I guess there are two brothers, but I don't... One or the other, which one is it that Ashley thinks is weird because he's obsessed with the mom's death? I'm getting a little lost in the sauce about the sons here. But the takeaway is, Ashley's got a beef with one of them. Okay, go back.
I wonder if they don't talk.
I don't think they do. And another line made me think of that is when Ashley said, I was their firstborn and they love both their daughters, but I was the one they really wanted. She said that.
She did say that. She did.
These are all red flags to me. I'm going, Ashley, there's more I want to know.
Me and my sister both were equally attached to her hip, but I was their first girl, and that was all they wanted.
Wow.
Right? Okay, but Heather has this stink, or raises this stink. She's talking about her pod, and I loved that Keith said it went viral in Dyserburg. That was a good line, right?
Okay. So what, like 15 people?
She's there talking to Keith. She loves talking about this. And she was one of those ones that had a real problem with the swinging. I mean, she's like, there are top people in government that live in this town that are swingers. And I want to go, Heather, who fucking cares? Like, it's none of your business.
There aren't that many people that live in this town at all. So yeah, if there's going to be swingers, chances are there'll be some top people.
Yeah.
Also, isn't she from the big city? She's all tatted up and like has all this worldly experience. What is she doing blushing over some people swinging?
Keith was almost getting in on it too because he said strange bedfellows to her. Okay, what the hell does that mean? We've all heard it. What's it mean?
It means you share your bed with people that you're maybe not super close with. Randos. You're banging randos.
That's what it means? Well, they agreed on it wholeheartedly. Heather and Keith had a real moment with it, and I was kind of like, I'm not into this.
Dyserburg is a spicy place, I suppose you could say. There's a huge swinger community here. There are people involved in some pretty high positions in this town.
Strange bedfellows.
You could say that.
So, and actually, now that we're talking about Heather, it's now time for a segment I like to call B-Roll, Ya Busted. Busted. Because we see a shot of Heather when she's out there with her troops, and there's a camera up in her face. There is a straight up moth or butterfly kicking it on her face. Kate, did you see that?
No.
It's the weirdest. As soon as I noticed it, I was like, I can't believe they used the close-up. Because she's even trying to remove it. I'm not kidding. It's like it's a moth or something kicking it right here. It's weird as hell, and I'm here to say B-Roll, you busted.
Busted. That is weird. It can't be a butterfly. It's got to be a moth.
Yeah. Because butterflies, pretty wings and whatnot. This was like a solid color. No butterflies doing a solid color or wing, right? Butterflies always got to have at least two.
White ones.
Damn it! Busted. So Heather's accusing the police of being in the pocket of the rich guy. The other detective, the white guy on the right, he was cracking me up. They were so disgusted at Heather and having to talk about her. Am I right?
They were adamant that, lots of people donate to different campaigns during elections. That doesn't influence their policing.
Yeah. And I'm going to play the clip it's going to do it better than I'm going to do it right now. But he said a line where he's just trying to tell Keith that she's no good. And he's like, she's always spreading lies. And when you see her coming, she's always trouble.
Nobody runs us. When you see her coming, she's always trouble.
Like sounded like an old-timey lawyer or something. I loved it.
A lot of good accent work in this episode.
Yeah. Everybody's got a little twang to them. The murder's in 2011. The trial doesn't happen until May 2024. So in between now and then, it's going cold. It's back in. Heather's talking about it. Heather's talking to Ashley, but Ashley's not talking to Heather anymore.
I think that this is kind of her 15 minutes of fame.
And then when the pandemic happens, it allows the police department to really look in on this, right? They're like, we're like...
We got nothing else to do, so we might as well look into this again.
Yeah. And so they do two things. One, they talk to Heather, but they're not convinced that Heather's telling them everything. So then what's their next step? Is they got a court order, went to her house, and just took all of her material on this.
They took everything. All of her work.
Yeah.
Baller move.
That was wild. I loved it. I loved it. I'm glad that they did that because, again, this is just some lady who came into town. Sure, she's a PI. She's got these credits. She studied true crime in college or something. But, like, this is all just hearsay bullshit that she's coming in like hot goss.
Yeah.
And it's almost become fact. And so now the cops get it and they start going back on her sources. And a reoccurring theme kept happening. This I like. Is they would talk to people and they go, oh, that's not what I said. And it's like, oh, really? Interesting. And Heather stands by her sources. Well, play the clip for us then, Heather. Right? I mean...
Because your sources don't stand by what they said.
Yeah. So now's the time to show up with that proof. But she doesn't do it. 2020. Oh! Okay. Another thing they did in 2020, they decide to do another sweep of David's house. This is where I get the most confused and have open-ended stuff. Because what do they find when they start digging? A place that they searched thoroughly like a decade before, 8 years before or whatever. Now they're looking for stuff. What do they find?
What do they find?
They dig up a burn barrel. And inside this burn barrel is one single barbell. Now what's funny about this barbell is that back when they first searched the house, I assume a decade earlier, they found a barbell set, but only one of the barbells.
Yeah.
So, we know, to me, this barbell is the murder weapon. What do you think?
Yeah, they try to analyze it and match it to the other one, and it's inconclusive. They can't tell if it's the matching pair to that other barbell. It also doesn't have any blood on it.
Well, somebody burned it, kept it in the barrel, and then buried it. So I'm not surprised there's nothing on it. But I needed a bigger reaction from everybody in this episode that they found that barbell. Especially with what they went for when they get to court. What they say, how he killed her. It's like, I'm not shocked at all at the outcome of that trial because the prosecution's planned for it. Like, why wouldn't they use this barbell? Instead they say that he curb stomped her. It's crazy.
It is weird to say that he stomped on her head when there's no real evidence of that.
Once inside the garage, the defendant stomped Karen on her head with such violence that it caved her skull in, and it caused shards of broken bone to enter her brain.
But before the trial begins, wouldn't you know it, David gets over this pretty quick. He's remarried 4 years later. He moves to Alabama, has a new wife that he also terrorizes and gets divorced from. Before the trial happens.
Yeah, they didn't last very long either.
No, and Ashley wasn't a fan of this lady. What'd you think of it? They kept showing her picture. I don't know. I was waiting for her to play more into this. But what was the vibe of that marriage? Was it similar to Karen and David's romance?
I don't know if it was similar in a sense that the new wife was being unfaithful, but it did seem like David was trying to control her and she wasn't having it. Although Ashley has kind of a different take.
Yeah, Ashley's not a fan. Was not a fan of her whatsoever.
Which implies that the wife was the abuser this time. But
well, yes, absolutely according to Ashley. But this wife gets a hold of the Midwest Mamie / Grace Gummer lookalike and says, hey, can I ask you if Karen had to deal with weird things like stalking and putting trackers on my stuff? And like, did that happen with Karen? Because that's what's going on with me right now.
Yeah.
Right?
But Ashley doesn't side with her still, despite that.
No. And this might have been from that ex-wife, but Keith says, like, her reason why it didn't work was because David put more, like, his family was more important.
Oh, yeah. He cared more about his kids than their marriage. And that would make her out to be terrible, because everyone should be putting their kids before their new marriage. But that doesn't seem like what the truth was when we hear from Mamie Gummer.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm with you. When I first heard that, I was like, ooh, evil stepmother. But she's being awfully honest, Kate. They did get divorced, and if she wants more attention, she can go. She's going to get it elsewhere. I don't know. I mean, you're right. He should be more focused on his kids than her. That's correct. But I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not mad at her. What do you think? I'm not mad at her.
I'm not mad at her either because I don't think that's what she said. I think that is what he told Ashley she said. I think he was trying to convince his kids that the wife was bad news by saying she doesn't like that I spend more time with you guys than with her. But I think the reality is he was being a psycho just like he was before.
Yeah, and case in point, when he's arrested for stalking this ex-wife. Because this dumb MFer is under surveillance and goes over to his ex's house, hops the fence to spy on her. And the cops, they don't stop him, though, do they? They just tell the lady about it the next day. They're like, hey, we got footage of this dude. You see this? You see what you're dealing with here? So he got arrested for that.
Rightfully so.
Right? That was cool. He was doing a lot of weird stalking stuff. Like, every time we see David, he's got these eyes that we're talking about, but he's doing his best to be a sad sack. Wouldn't you agree? A sad sack dad that's just in the wrong place.
Yes. I didn't see tears, though. I saw a lot of, like, holding the hand over the eyes and holding up the head and looking sad, but no actual emotion.
Yeah. They press charges, I think, in 2022, but because of this stalking business, the bail gets revoked. He's back in jail. Trial happens May of 2024. The trial starts, and although I'm on the prosecution side in that I think David killed his wife, Karen, their approach to this was wrong from the jump because they did something else we've seen, is they open up by saying the evidence they don't have. It's like, dudes, don't draw attention to this, right?
Yeah. Because all they need is reasonable doubt, and you say what the doubt is right from the jump.
We don't have fingerprints. We don't have DNA. We don't have blood. It's like, guy, cut it out. Cut it out.
This is not one of the cases where you're going to see positive DNA results. You are not going to see fingerprint analysis.
So they proposed the theory that David was the one that moved Ashley, and then he picked up Karen, took her to the garage, and stomped her head in with his foot. That's what they propose because of what the medical examiner, what the coroner told them.
The prosecutor said that David Swift stomped Karen Swift's head. And I was like, oh, I've never heard that.
But wouldn't you know it, while the prosecution's laying this out, they get an email from that coroner. What's the coroner's telling them in that email, Kateline? The timing of this was hilarious.
That it was due to an object, not foot.
He basically takes it back. She did not die from head stomping. Like, the prosecution got an email saying this while they're telling the jury she was murdered by head stomping.
But at the exact time Prosecutor Goodman was describing it to the jury, the ME emailed to say he had changed his mind.
We received an email at that time saying that's not what he thought was going to be the cause of death.
Wow. I've heard of awkward timing, but that takes the cake.
It was very difficult.
Like, that's again strike number 2 where I'm like, you guys are screwed. You're screwed.
But didn't they say blunt force trauma due to, like, an object striking her?
Well, they said blunt force trauma to the head. They didn't necessarily say object, but that was in the mix because of that barbell.
The barbell.
That's when I wanted them to talk about the barbell. Like, they didn't even bring it up in the trial, as far as I know. Where's their head at on that?
It's very weird.
Also, now, Kate, I sent a picture of this guy. Of all the characters in this show, there's a lot of accent work, but there's one guy who's taken home best dressed. And he works for the court. That was not a spectator. He's on, like, the court side of the proceedings. But tell us about his look.
This guy, he's an old-timer.
Yeah.
He's wearing every color on his jacket with a matching tie.
Yeah.
I want to say it's kind of like an early 90s art print. It's like, picture the opening theme of Saved by the Bell as a blazer.
Yeah, but like more vibrant. Like, it's an assault of colors. So much so
it is
that if Judge Myers had been residing over this court, I'd have sent that guy home. I'd go, dude, you're peacocking right now. Okay, you're taking up too much attention. Why are you wearing this? We're recording this. You're in every shot. Like, and he shows up other days in something equally loud. Like, that's this guy's move. right?
And this was still in their town, right? They didn't move this to another jurisdiction?
No, they did. They did because too many people knew about it or whatever. Like, they knew David, so they moved it to somewhere else nearby.
In May of 2024, it was moved to a different town.
A bigger town, perhaps, where there are a bigger variety of people, including this man with his colorful blazer.
Yeah. So the prosecution and the defense, they do their thing, and the jury, they go to talk about it. And there are 3 charges that are against David. And what's the verdict, Kateline?
Well, he's not guilty on all 3.
No, there are 3 things he's being accused of. 2 of them have to do with murder, I think, and one of them has to do with disposing of a body or something.
As the jury found the defendant not guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
There was no agreement.
No agreement.
A hung jury.
But the first 2, they say not guilty. So they cannot, as far as charging David with murder, that's it. It's over. He's innocent. The third one was a hung jury, right? They could not decide on the third one. Again, this is my problem with the prosecution is, why are you giving him so many options?
Yeah, totally.
Because with a case that is so clearly going to have reasonable doubt, don't give them so many outs. Like the jury, I'm surprised not all 3 were not guilty, because I know David killed his wife, but I can't prove it.
Right.
Can you? I can't.
I wonder if this is just a lack of experience.
With a murder, like a high-profile murder?
Yeah, nothing like that happens in this place.
Yeah, I could see that. And it was weird where the DA, there was a new DA, and then there's an election to pick the new DA, and the guy who's running against him says in his campaign, "I'm a fan of swift justice." And this is a bit of wordplay that the whole town is privy to.
He's going to come into office and make solving Karen's case a priority.
Right. So DA Goodman, the guy who's the sitting DA, he wins again. And I think based on that slogan alone, he presses charges. I think that's what kicked off these charges, and it was a mistake because he was found not guilty. But I think that's why he tried it finally. Was he's like, oh yeah, you want swift justice? Well, I can do that too.
There was just momentum behind it.
Yeah. We are now at the end of the ep. And even though we talked about Heather and the cells a lot, I can't stress enough that there's a large portion of this episode all about that hearsay crap and how Heather and Daryl's cells are suing each other because Daryl threatened to rubber face in concrete or something. And they settle out of court.
And you look at him and you're like, yeah, he's not going to do that. He can't even open his eyes when he talks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she felt threatened.
Again, I wanted to like Heather, but I did not like her. She was really loving this. She's like, he belittles me, but it's okay because I don't like him either. Like, she is really loving this.
He belittles me. He demeans me. He puts me down. It's okay. I don't care much for him either.
It's really interesting, the characters in this that we side with. We shouldn't, but we do.
I agree. Like, I've got no problem with an outsider coming in and like bringing more attention to an unsolved murder. That's awesome. But all of this attention outside of David Swift is because of Heather. Like, without Heather at all, there would be no question of who the suspect would be.
And then maybe he would have been convicted because there wouldn't be as much reasonable doubt. There wouldn't be these other suspects or shady folk in the mix.
Yeah, I think we're at the end. Kateline, you got a list?
Oh, I've got a list.
Hit me.
Kate's unnamed list. It is a small town. The kind of town where things like this just don't happen.
Yep, they say it.
Dyserburg is a very small town.
And the only other thing on my list is they said piece of the puzzle, missing piece, like twice, I think.
It was more so of putting a puzzle together.
We will, however, give you several pieces of a puzzle.
That's the one where I was like, if Kateline doesn't catch this one, I'm gonna be... That was the one, Kate.
Yeah, they said it a couple times, and I was like, oh, let's write that down for Kurt.
Yeah, I was like, oh, come on. Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
Now, like I mentioned earlier, I gotta get future Kurt in here, because that guy said something on my list that I've since forgotten, okay? But it happened within the same breath. Oh, I remembered it! Motherfucker said aha moment.
It was just the one big thing that's, just the aha moment.
Did you hear that?
Nice.
That's on my list. Okay, there's the aha moment. That was cool. Somebody goes, it's like I'm living in a made-up Lifetime movie. Classic.
She did say that.
Lifetime name drop.
She did say that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's just something of a made-up Lifetime movie.
What else on my list? I think that's it. Yeah, I'm glad that I know what kudzu is now. It's a fun word to say, and I think it's pretty. And boy, was that moth shot weird, but I wasn't crazy about this episode. I had a lot of thoughts on it because I just get a little confused, but I wasn't crazy about this one.
I don't know. I feel like there's something to your theory about the sun.
Right? Like, we're not knowing something.
Maybe the dad helped the son and covered it up?
I thought maybe the mom, because it's a small town, her partying overlapped with the son's partying. Suddenly they're partying together, and then something happened. That's what I was prepared for. Because of the big deal they were making about how drunk she was all the time and being naked and like just a bunch of like pearl clutching bull that I don't have time for.
Like she slept with one of the son's friends?
Yes. Yeah, stuff like that.
Or she was just embarrassing him to the point where he went into a rage and killed her?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and look, the DA filed manslaughter charges somehow, even though he's found not guilty of murder. Is that true?
The DA Goodman re-indicted him on the manslaughter charge.
They'll be in court again next year.
Well, he'll probably be not guilty of that as well. Unless they're going to use the barbell and the burn barrel.
I mean, why else would a barbell be buried? And like, I know there was 8 years in between, so who knows what happened. But if it's true that they found the one barbell on the initial search the day after, like, I want to find out more about this friggin' barbell, because that sounds to me like classic heat of the moment murder weapon right there.
It does.
Oh, that's classic. All right, well, I think that's it. What are we missing here? Anything? Oh! They were calling bullshit on his crutches in the court, and I loved, they had like the guy that gave him barrels of hay, and he was like, I didn't see no crutches. He was funny about it, right?
Was he using crutches?
I've never seen no crutches on Saturday.
But his defense attorney was like, well, that was a real injury, and he was actually in physical therapy for several months after that. It's like, well, right, after that.
Yeah.
After he re-injured it from killing his wife and moving her body.
Yeah. And
so going to therapy for it in the months after her disappearance doesn't prove anything.
No, it doesn't. And when you look at it as being a trick, it all makes sense, because Halloween night, he's like, hey, I can't take him trick-or-treating because of this bum leg of mine. You mind taking him? And it's, I don't know. I mean, he played his card. Obviously, it works. I mean, we're calling bullshit on it. It doesn't matter. You guys free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? All right. Well.
Yeah. For now.
On that note, I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Kateline.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.
When you see her coming, she's always trouble.